Hello my decked out dermatologists, it's your boy Zionic Blader, and a couple weeks ago I participated in a World Beyblade Organization Beyblade X tournament in Toronto, Canada, where we had to come up with a deck of 3 Beyblade combinations that did not have any repeating parts. Since the meta for Beyblade X is brand new and people are trying to figure things out, I thought it would be a good idea to share what Beyblade combinations I used, as well as my thoughts on what worked and what didn't work for each Beyblade during the tournament so that fellow Bladers can experiment, learn, and even improve upon what I used. In this tournament, I went 3 wins and 2 losses in the preliminaries, and then I won every match in the finals. My friend Lamar Devante, aka Hado, also used the exact same deck and went undefeated in the preliminaries, winning all 5 rounds and had a very close quarterfinal match. Hado would also go on to use a very similar deck in another smaller tournament that happened last week and reached the top 4. The first Beyblade I want to talk about is the ace of the deck and the Beyblade I would lead with in every round, Scythe 460 Needle, which I have named Sriracha due to the resemblance this Beyblade has with a Sriracha bottle. Now the reason I went with this combo was actually by accident. I quickly concocted Sriracha during a mock tournament video I made with Lamar Devante, and it ended up winning the entire mock tournament. Its resemblance to Sriracha was the final nail that made me use it for the tournament. Yes, I did it for the memes. But, to also be serious for a moment, having a stationary Beyblade be the first Beyblade I use in a match helps alleviate any beginning of round jitters that may cause me to mess up a launch and accidentally self-KO, which is something aggressive Beyblades can do if launched too hard. With Sriracha, I can launch as hard as I want and not worry about self-KOs due to the needle bit. I used Sriracha for a total of 24 battles, with 2 no contests, 1 draw, 6 losses, and 15 wins. Sriracha does great against aggressive moving Beyblades like stock Dran Sword and combos on taper. It's able to take a lot of punishment, and the needle bit helps it slip by some hits. Sriracha is a lot more risky against stationary combos. Against a stationary Wizard Arrow, if Sriracha does not get enough big hits, Wizard Arrow's naturally better stamina will allow it to beat Sriracha. Also, high recoil stationary combos like Night Shield on High Needle and especially Scythe on Ball can make things very difficult for Sriracha, as the high recoil of the 2 combating Beyblades can add a level of randomness where the Beyblade facing closest towards a pocket will lose the battle when there's a big hit. That being said, Sriracha is still a Beyblade I would use in another tournament setting. My second Beyblade is Dran Sword 360 Flat, which is the normal plain Jane stock combination. The reason I went with Dran Sword was because of all the hype it has around it. It has dominated many tournaments and was second place in the first ever Beyblade X tournament in Toronto, so I felt I needed to have this Beyblade in my deck so that I don't miss out. That being said, I only used Dran Sword in 5 battles. 1 no contest, 2 losses, and 2 wins. All matches were against other attack types, either in a Dran Sword mirror match in which I won those, or against Dran Sword on taper and Knight Lance on taper, which I lost. I am definitely not the person to be asking when it comes to Dran Sword. Lamar Devante, who was in top 8, and 1234 Beyblade, who was runner-up, are much better users of Dran Sword, and they had amazing results with it. That being said, I do not think I would use a stock Dran Sword again in a tournament setting. I feel even with its amazing results in general, I would prefer to use something that has more stamina. Or for an all-out attack Dran Sword, I may try it out with low flat. But most likely I will use another attack type blade like Knight Lance or Shark Edge. My third Beyblade was Night Shield 380 Taper, which is an aggressive spinning Beyblade that is usually used as a counter against Dran Sword, which is why I added this Beyblade to my deck. However, the mistake I made was that I used this Beyblade as my third Beyblade. Most people use Dran Sword first or second, meaning Night Shield never actually faced off against a Dran Sword and was usually up against stationary Beyblades, so when it did not burst an opponent, it would go out due to a spin finish. In the end, I used this Beyblade in 4 battles, with it having 2 wins and 2 losses. I don't have much to really add to this Beyblade, other than next time I would place Night Shield higher in my deck order so it would actually have a chance to face off against a Dran Sword. Also, High Needle seems to be the way to go for an anti-attack Night Shield, so I would play around with that. Finally, I want to briefly mention Wizard Arrow 480 Ball, which I used for 1 battle in the entire tournament, with it replacing stock Dran Sword when I faced off against a 6-year-old and was worried that I might mess up my launch and self-KO myself. It went up against a stock Night Shield and won, which makes sense because Wizard Arrow on paper should be able to beat Night Shield due to their typing. Overall, Scythe 460 Needle, aka Sriracha, was definitely the ace of the tournament. However, it did lose more in the preliminaries, so while it was the ace, I wouldn't say the combo carried my entire tournament run, since there were rounds where victory can be credited to Dran Sword and Night Shield instead. I just felt super comfortable with Sriracha, and in the finals you don't need to switch Beyblades, which is why Sriracha has so many more battles compared to my other 2 Beyblades. Well, this has been Zionic Blader with my first ever Beyblade X deck profile. If you liked the video, hit the like button, or don't, I'm not the boss of you, but be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you get updated whenever I upload. Until next time, see ya!